Well, South Park. What can I really say about it that hasn't been said already by so many people? The cartoon has had such an impact on our popular culture that it's positively astounding. And to be honest, a show that has become, or at least touted itself primarily as being all about tipping over sacred cows, has now, in and of itself, become something of a sacred cow. The mere idea of trying to point out anything that could be wrong with the show is sort of viewed as heresy. But I have to be honest, looking back at all of the South Park episodes, it's inevitable that we're going to be a few duds that we get to see. And yeah, there's a few genuinely bad episodes in the show. And I'm going to talk about them here and now. Now, this is all just opinion. You can feel free to disagree, you can talk about it in the comments, I welcome that sort of thing. But having said that, let's get started. These are the worst episodes ever of South Park. The Return of Chef. This was kind of a big darn deal, because they killed off Chef in this episode, and Chef was one of the few genuinely helpful adult characters on the show. It's not the fact that they killed him off that bothers me, although that is one of the reasons. It's the reason why they killed him off and how they treated his character. Essentially, Chef was pretty much forced out of the show by the Church of Scientology, and he was evidently in tears when he had to break the news to Matt and Trey, but they treat his character and his departure like a betrayal, and they burn all bridges, and that bothers me. Let's move on to number 9, and it's one that all of you know, A Million Little Fibers. Yes, everybody hates this episode. It's boring, it's stupid. Oprah's vagina pulling out a gun is the only funny thing about it, and it focuses too much on a character that is just not interesting. Everybody's already explained why this sucks, so let's move on to the next one. Butt Out. The reason why I don't like this one is for a very, very simple reason. It's too mean-spirited towards the wrong people. First of all, I have no doubt that there is some propaganda when it comes to trying to keep kids from smoking, but let's not act as though the tobacco companies are the innocent victims in all this. They spent years and millions of dollars trying to get kids to smoke cigarettes, trying to basically get everybody possible to smoke cigarettes, pushing a product that they knew was far more dangerous than advertised. The idea that everybody knows the dangers of smoking simply wasn't true, because information came out that, guess what? We didn't know the true dangers of smoking because the tobacco companies had outright lied to us about the true dangers. But Matt and Trey just want to take cheap pot shots at Rob Reiner and stick up for the poor, downtrodden tobacco industry. Give me a break. But oh, I can't forget about Mrs. Garrison's fancy new vagina. That episode that's completely transphobic and just makes fun of transgendered people or people who have had gender reassignment surgery. Yeah, because those people really needed to be made fun of for some reason. Oh, and of course, racial stereotypes about how white people can't play basketball. Oh, yuck, oh, yuck, oh, yuck. You know, South Park used to understand that stereotypes alone weren't funny. When did they forget that? This isn't punching up, it's punching down at a group of people who are already treated poorly by society. But then we get into You're Getting Old and Asperger's. For one, it makes fun of people who have Asperger's, myself included by the way, but it also represents something bigger, failed potential. These two episodes had a chance to actually shake up the status quo by showing genuine consequences when it came to Stan. The original idea was that Stan was going to be genuinely depressed for like half a season trying to cope with everything. And that would have been a good idea. Would have shown actual character development, something that's very rare. But instead, the whole thing ends with a basic screw you and basically saying that there's no point, nothing's ever going to really change. That's just depressing as all hell. It's such a... They could have done so much more and they didn't. But perhaps that's preferable to smearing a private citizen. And that's the problem with Butter's very own episode. Because that's exactly what happens. What am I talking about? After Butter's mom goes crazy and thinks she drowns Butters in the car, her and her husband try to cover it up, and guess who comes to their defense? OG, the Benets, and O.J. Simpson, and I can't do this. Okay, this is seriously wrong. Do you know why I have a problem with this? Yes, we all know O.J. Simpson did that crap, but the Benets didn't do anything wrong, and yet they're put through the ringer. And that's disgusting. Matt and Trey never apologized for essentially saying that these two parents killed their daughter and got away with it. And that is just plain wrong. And you know what else is wrong? The losing edge. Want to know why I don't like this? You know, I did at first, but... Okay, first things first, they don't sell beer at Little League games. Secondly, we are essentially trying to root for these guys so that they can be lazy and just play video games all summer. Yeah, because that's what I want to... That's a good message to send, that kids should just play video games all summer and be inside all the time. Yeah, that's a terrible message. Oh, but it's not nearly as bad as Night of the Living Homeless, which completely demonizes homeless people.
Alright, enough! I find this whole conversation to be extremely offensive. The homeless aren't monsters, they are people, like you and me.
I hope you like that one bit of humanity, because the rest of the entire episode is just showing homeless people as selfish and punching down at them. This entire episode is pretty much offensive to the working poor. And then, of course, there's China Problems.
I've been saving up for a new
Now,
Xbox
this
because
story
I want to
has
take it.
both
It's $20.
racist stereotypes played up a bit too much, but the main story is actually basically just whining and moaning about how Matt and Trey feel that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a betrayal of the Indiana Jones series. Yeah, pretty much the entire episode is centered completely around them complaining that aliens don't belong in Indiana Jones, or this is too ridiculous for Indiana Jones. It's just the same thing over and over. So let me see if I got this right. The Holy Grail isn't too much for Indiana Jones. Ripping a guy's heart out and having him still be alive while he's lowered into a fiery pit, and then having a magic stone suddenly burn through a bag, that's not too much. Having a immortal knight or the Ark of the Covenant melting people's faces, that isn't too much. Having a freaking raft fall out of a plane and somehow its inhabitants land on the snowy slopes below completely unharmed is perfectly fine for an Indiana Jones film, but oh, aliens and nuking the fridge is just too much? Give me a break. The Indiana Jones films have always featured a lot of fantasy and a lot of outlandish elements, and you guys are just whining and letting nostalgia cloud your judgment for what's otherwise a pretty good action film. So much complaining, so much... I hate to use this term, but this episode is pretty much Matt and Trey bitching that everything was better on my Earth. This entire episode boils down to them complaining about how those kids should get off my lawn. That's it. Oh, but I can't forget about Man Bear Pig. And do I really honestly have to explain why Man Bear Pig is so awful? It's essentially making fun of somebody who's passionate about the subject of global warming and climate change. And by the way, if you still think that climate change isn't a real and serious issue that's facing the planet, even now, even after all of the studies that have come out, even after PolitiFact article after PolitiFact and fact-checked article has come out proving that it is an actual big issue, that it has not been blown out of proportion, that it is happening and that mankind is contributing to it, if you still don't think climate change is a real issue that needs to be dealt with here and now and not later, you can just leave right now, because I have no tolerance for people like you any more than I have tolerance for people who don't believe the sun sets in the west or who think vaccines cause autism. This is cold, hard science, okay? Scientists don't doubt that evolution is how life appeared on the planet, and they don't doubt that the Big Bang is how the universe got started. This isn't really up for debate. The debate is on what should be done, not whether or not it exists, and all this episode does is make fun of a big issue. But all of this, the punching down at groups that are given a terrible shake by society, misrepresenting big issues that need to be taken more seriously, none of that compares to hypocrisy. This is the kind of issue I cannot stand. This is the one issue that I will not abide by. And oh, did South Park hit the hypocrisy jackpot with the episode Britney's New Look. South Park is constantly mocking celebrities and making fun of them every chance they get. So for them to suddenly switch gears and to say, "Leave Britney alone," is the absolute height of hypocrisy. Much of the entire episode is really very much lacking in laughs, so it doesn't even have that to fall back on. It keeps trying to make this argument that people obsess too much over celebrities and that we're too mean to them and that we blow things that they do out of proportion and make fun of them constantly making mistakes. But I'm sorry for swearing, who in the fuck is South Park to complain about the fact that people are too mean and too harsh and too cruel to celebrities? They are the worst of the lot. It is like Charles Manson trying to tell William Gacy to tone it back a little. It's like Stalin telling Hitler to give it a rest with the mass murdering. You don't get to talk because it's fucking hypocritical of you to complain about this sort of thing. The entire episode is just gross, hypocritical, has no understanding that it's the worst offender of all, and it's just a complete waste of time with a needlessly dark ending. Screw this episode! Nevertheless, I want to make something clear. I do genuinely believe that South Park has had more good episodes than bad. And yeah, there's been a few stinkers here and there, but that doesn't mean overall that the show is a bad thing in and of itself. South Park has the potential to challenge us and make us think about real issues, and is able to simplify complicated issues to a mainstream audience in a way that's witty and funny. It stumbles sometimes, but for the most part, it works. So I eagerly look forward to whatever Matt and Trey have prepared next. Just try not to put out another episode as hypocritical as Britney's New Look, okay guys? Because I seriously don't think it could handle another one like that.
No, I thought that was a lot.
Spare any change?
You're welcome.